Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I wanted to talk to you today about some guerrilla type tactics that we might have to deal with at some point in the near future. It's kind of a theme around here lately, and I think it's something that a lot of you civilians might need to learn, because if you're like myself, you didn't serve in a foreign war in the military, and so you need to get a little bit of training. No one expects you to be a Green Beret or an Army Ranger, but you can certainly develop a certain level of tactics and skills. And I brought along someone that has served and that has been out there and knows what he's talking about. So I wanted to go over some tactics today and some things that might be more in our sphere that we may have to deal with in the coming times, and the things that we may be facing. Who knows, maybe even in the near future. Yesterday, I want to say this. Yesterday I made a video talking about Minuteman tactics. And I think there was some misunderstanding by a few people, because they took it as meaning Minuteman that's going to go off and maybe face a regular army, standing army, and that's not exactly what I meant at all. I simply meant someone is a Minuteman that is capable of responding very rapidly to a threat. That threat may simply be a raccoon in your chicken coop. How quickly can you muster yourself and grab your tools to go and protect your chickens? And the same way with your family. So being a Minuteman is part of defending your home, your family, and the community around you. So, Mr. Incognito friend here. One of the things I think that starting off with looking at the type of unconventional warfare that folks like us may have to face, and I want to make it clear, like I did in yesterday's video, regardless of your past training, you may be some very highly skilled and highly trained fighter. In a way that's good, and in a way you have to realize that a lot of that may have to be thrown out the window, because what you're going to deal with may not fit anything that you've trained, unless of course you've got a lot of unconventional warfare training, because really that's what it's going to look like. Our army, our military has faced two different wars that I'm sure you can think of where we didn't do so well. I understand there was a lot of politics that caused us to not do so well. But in the end, insurgents and guerrilla tactics showed that they actually can do quite well against a highly trained and highly equipped standing military. So don't discount the fact that it's maybe just you, or just you and your friends that are out trying to protect and save what you have. So, amen. I just wanted to make that clear. Any particular thoughts that you have as we get started with this discussion?
I think everybody should put in perspective what you're going to have to be doing as far as camouflage, being able to get ready quickly, taking on the task, make sure that you're physically ready for it, and never feel unsuperior, because unsuperior odds have beat the United States more than a few times.
Exactly. I've mentioned it before, and I would encourage you, especially for any of you history buffs that may not be familiar with this, if you go back to the war between the states, there was a battle here in our state of Missouri that I always find to be very interesting to read up on. It was called the Battle of Carthage, a little unknown town of Carthage, Missouri, still a very small town. There was no standing Southern Confederate military in the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of farmers. And in fact, if you read, the vast majority of those farmers didn't even have firearms. A lot of them just had literally pitchforks and shovels and mallets and knives. Yep. And they stood up against a standing Northern army, fully equipped, and they actually defeated them.
Butchered them.
So just because... and then, you know, old Joe Biden, he likes to say, if you don't have F-16s and nukes, you can't defeat us. Well, tell that to the Taliban, right? Because they did a pretty good job with 70-plus-year-old weapons and virtually no training whatsoever.
Oh, so, yeah, definitely.
One of the things is that we had discussed is being able to be light and mobile, being able to move quickly, which is where the Minuteman comes in at.
Lord, make me fast and accurate.
You may not have time, minutes even, to get your gear on, to get ready. And in fact, the term the Minuteman came from the ability to get ready within a minute's time. So is your gear placed in your home in a place that you can get it? Are you training on how quickly? You know, my friend here, of course, he has a lot of gear on, and the proper type of clothing, he may not be able to put that type of clothing on. It may be civilian clothing, and that's okay too. But can you get the gear that counts on very quickly? And that's going to be a very important. Also, the ability to move quickly. You know, you're not going out there necessarily with a 90-pound pack on. You're not most likely going to have to be moving too far away from your home if you're defending your home and the area directly around you. So you want things that are light enough that you can move pretty quickly.
On the right! To the right! Reload! Reload!
You only want the gear that you need, so you're not taking 3 and 4 days worth of food and water. Maybe a couple little snack bars. You definitely want water, and then I would say the rest is ammunition and some medical, because you need to be able to move in and move out very quickly.
Old jungle training says, always take 1 liter of water per 100 pounds. Always take 2,000 calories per 100 pounds.
Okay?
And you can store all that in something not much bigger than an IFAC, so you don't have to have a whole assault pack on.
Yes, and that's the one of the benefits of the time that we live in. It's not the 60s and 70s where things weren't as compact. You know, you can go to pretty much any grocery store just about, and if not, a health food store, and you can find fairly long-lasting energy bars that are very calorie dense. They may not all taste great, but that's something that I usually use. I don't eat them on a daily basis because I don't need them, but I usually have a box or so sitting around for that purpose. And so that's typically what I do. Things like Cliff Bars and stuff like that, you know, they're very high calorie. 3 or 4 bars is usually enough calories for the whole day.
Yep.
And so that's something, like you said, it doesn't take up, you know, a pouch, a pouch this size right here. You can literally have probably at least 2 days worth of food in it.
Yeah.
And then still have room left over.
Absolutely. And I say, like, a chest rig can go on fast, leg rig with the belt doesn't take long. This has enough room for food. And then a lot of people use camelbacks, and camelbacks are great, but filling them up is time consuming, especially if they're hooked to your gear. So I always recommend being able to have a 2-quart canteen with a strap and a...
And camelbacks can be kind of a pain to clean if you need to also.
Right. I mean, the camelback you can have on and then have it, but I'd always have a 2-quart or a 1-quart canteen, something you can just dip in the river or something, in a well, something quickly.
And then you can get things like a Sawyer Mini or even a Life Straw that doesn't take up very much space or weight, so that you can filter any water. The point is being a Minuteman and being someone that would go out and face a threat to protect your family and the immediate people around you, you're going to have to be pretty minimal. You can't expect to carry tons and tons of gear. I would say the only exception to that you want to carry as much as possible, and that's probably ammunition.
Reach it.
Absolutely. I know that there is a theory out there, or there is an opinion, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but there's an opinion out there that you don't need to carry very much ammunition because you don't plan on being in a firefight very long. Well, I don't think anyone expects to be in a firefight or desires to be in a firefight very long. I mean, that's almost foolish to actually desire that.
I'll say it personally. I've been there, 3 mags, you're wrong.
Yeah.
It will never be enough.
I've heard it from my friend here. I've heard it from a few others. There's been guys on videos that have also seen direct combat, very heated combat, and they will tell you, I remember I watched a guy just a few weeks ago, and he said he wouldn't go out with less than probably 18 to 20 mags. And that may sound like a lot for a lot of people, because your plan is to get in and get out. You don't want to be, you know, caught in a long firefight. But what if you are caught in one? What if you don't have any other choice? What if you have to fight your way out and 3-4 mags just aren't going to last very long? So I would recommend You know, something like my friend has here is capable. These are these 2, or can they hold 3 each?
They're kangaroos, so they carry 2 rifle and 1 pistol.
2 rifle and 1 pistol, so he's got quite a bit here. Let me disarm myself for a moment. Now, most of you have seen this, but this is just simply a chest rig. It's capable of holding 4 right now. I usually have a 4th one, but right now, this morning, I stuck a radio in there. And then I also have a bandolier here capable of holding 8 additional mags, and then I've got a belt on that's got 2 mags. So, honestly, what I'm carrying and what my friend here is carrying is probably about the minimum that you would want to do. If I was expecting to go out even longer, or if I knew for a fact that the fight could be much more intense, I might grab a backpack with me that may have additional mags in it, or something like that. And then, of course, that's going to be up to your judgment, you know, based on the situation. You know, if you think there could be a threat, you gear up like this. If you know for a fact, maybe the neighbor a half mile down the road is dealing with, you know, 15, 20 guys that are, you know, kicking, you know that there's a firefight, you know it's heated, you know it's a bad one, then yeah, I probably would grab even another bag that I would keep that would have even additional ammunition in it. So ammunition is probably one of those things you certainly don't want to skimp on. Another thing that we talked about was, of course, the moving in quick and moving out. You're not going to be able to stand up against any kind of force, especially if it's regular army in any way. And I want to make this clear. In my opinion, I don't know that we would, you know, the chances of us having to face an American military might be pretty slim, simply for the fact that if you live out like we do, odds are they're going to be pretty well wrapped up in the cities or any type of foreign forces if we're at a World War III scenario, or just dealing with the big cities if we were in any kind of grid down or civil war or any type of breakdown in that way. A lot of people think that the U.S. military would be all over the country, and the fact is there's just not enough. You're dealing with, what, 20 divisions?
Not even close.
You know?
We have enough to hold a decent state, and that's about it.
Yeah.
As far as, that's why fighting in patrol base and forward operating bases all over the Middle East, that's the way we did it, and that's the way we did in Vietnam, because we focus on our sharpness and our ability, instead of being a blunt hammer like some of these red faction type armies are, where we can just send waves of people in. So we focus on precision and surgical precision at that, and so we project our power with bases that we have, you know, fire support out of and stuff like that.
Right.
Air support.
Yeah, and I, from the training, the law enforcement training that I received, that was kind of, because I did go through some training, I've spoken of it before, of, you know, what would we do if there was some kind of breakdown of whether it's regional, local, regional, or national. And the idea always was in the training that they would do their best to try to secure major cities, and then, well, everyone else out in the country was kind of on their own. It's possible, there are scenarios I'm sure we could all think of, Red Dawn kind of scenarios, where we might actually face foreign adversaries. That would be different. But I would say the vast majority of people living out in the country, odds are you're going to just be facing just bad people. And don't be too surprised that those bad people may organize pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I've spoken with others, and there would probably be, and this is just hypothetically thinking, if something major happened, that there was a major breakdown that happened fairly quickly, say an EMP or a grid attack or some type of solar event that would cause everything to break down very rapidly, there would probably be a window of time period where you wouldn't have, you may have small petty criminals in the country, but you're not probably going to have the marauder type forces. And then at some point you might find that. I would say that would be the most likely thing that you're going to face, is just groups of bad people, and some of them could be ex-cops and ex-military that's just decided to take things into their own hands and sometimes do things bad. And so that's going to be the biggest thing that you're going to have to face. In a scenario like that, we talked about roads and bridges. You want to kind of go
Yes.
over that kind of briefly in your area, things that we should be doing? Because we have the home field advantage. We have to always remember that. You know, your AO, where you're at, you have the home field advantage there. Odds are any threat that's coming into you is probably going to be from outside your AO, unless you just happen to live in a really rough area.
Yep.
So you have home field advantage, and you should take advantage of that if you want.
And if you've done your recon right, and you know your area well, and you've been on your boots on the ground, then you know where it floods when it rains. You'll know where the back roads can't support heavy vehicles, and you'll know what main service routes they're going to have to use. And so that's why the main interstate system was built to begin with, and the highways was to be able to move the military across the country in case of invasion. So you got to remember that in case of especially a foreign entity causing whatever's happening, that a serious major bridge, if it's a one-way in, one-way out for a town, that there's going to be some type of occupation of the crossroads and at the very least, there's going to be convoys going, on regular pace, patrolling to make sure that no one's trying to control that, or water sources. As if the electricity's down, everybody's going to have to go to the river and the lakes to get water. Don't go to ponds. That's kind of self-explanatory for most people unless you got the know-how. But I think a lot of people will suffer because the problem is you'll have the lull after whatever happens. You'll have somewhere, we've war gamed this, it's about 5 days where the petty theft and everything will pick up, but it won't be murdering, rampaging and stuff. And in that time, whoever's going to be really doing the evil is building their plan and their forces to start getting people together. And that's when you're going to, after 5 to 8 days, that's usually what we've seen in other countries when we've accidentally toppled their government.
Accidentally.
About 8 days is when you start getting people, and it's not even serious at that point. It's people driving around in vehicles with guns, but it starts about 5 to 8 days in that people start vying because nature abhors a vacuum. And so when you have all that power gone and all that structure, someone wants to take that position. Everybody wants to be the king of the world, so get ready.
Absolutely. I would advise, and this isn't that difficult for most all of you, do a little research and try to find some maps in your area. Not just road maps, that's important, but also topographical maps. If you don't know how to read a topographical map, please learn how to do that. There are sources online, videos and everything that can teach you how to read a topographical map. It's the one with all the little squiggly lines on it for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad to learn. Here in my state, I know some other states do this, you can actually download a high resolution copy of the quadrant, which is broken down in your county, of topographical maps for free, and then you can go to sometimes like a mailbox at a UPS store or something like that. A lot of times they have large-scale printers, and for not too terrible a fee, you can print out a fairly large, like a 2-foot by 3-foot topographical map of your direct area. You need to learn that. Like you said, ravines, little draws down in the out in the woods, bridges, major roads, things that are going to be important. Places that could be, let's say, ambush points. Choke points, things like that, because you have the advantage and you understand what's around there. You can go right now, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about doing this after it all hits the fan. We're talking about doing this now. You need to be going around. You know the back roads in your area. That's something that I'm kind of nerdy about.
Yeah.
I like taking back roads because I want to see how they are. I want to learn. I want to figure out, and as much as some people are going to say this is awful, I like to see how fast I can drive on them. Not because I have some need for speed, but I want to know how safe I can get through in some of these roads like the one that we're standing on today. I also want to know if there's anything that, large trees, large hills, piles of rocks. When it starts to do a lot of heavy raining, you should probably go out and drive them also and see how those creeks fill up with water. Are they impassable depending on the amount of rain that you've received? You should know where these ambush and choke points and critical points are in your area. And this is something that you can figure out already now as an individual or some type of tribe. This is actually going to be very critical because whether it's government, foreign governments, or just bad guys on the loose, they're going to be going the path of least resistance. Militaries and bad guys, the odds of them just completely going through the woods and the fields are very slim, unless you're talking about a major ground war, which is exactly what we're not talking about. They're going to be driving main roads, and you need to figure out where those places are that you can use to your advantage, or where those places are that you need to secure, that you need to kind of take over if that's the case. I know that as a single person, you may think that that's impossible for me, and that's probably true. But you still need to know where these places are, because when it comes to unconventional warfare, again, you're not going to be facing, or you shouldn't be trying to face, directly on a standing fighting force. It's going to be things of picking off their supplies, taking out their fuel, even something as simple as disabling their vehicles. And learning to be able to do this from a distance, and that's what we're talking about. Are there ridge points, places that you can get up high? These are the kinds of things that you need to be figuring out now in your area, so that you can take advantage of them if the time ever happens that you need to do that.
Plotting the avenues of approach, and finding out where, if you have to defend a position, if your family comes down, if things are bad and the well goes bad, this is a river that we have to get water from. Well, somebody's going to want control of that river, unless you just by happens live in an area where you got a lot of good-hearted, God-fearing Americans that are all going to band together, which happens around here quite often, but not everywhere.
Right.
You're going to have to be able to and get used to moving your family. I think that's a big thing people are falling out on. It's one thing for us guys to get out and do stuff, but you might have to move your family. Maybe the position or the area is overrun, and you're going to have to move to another location that's friendly, and you're going to have to be, maybe you're the only guy. Maybe your wife's carrying a baby and you're it.
Right.
But you got to get used, and they got to get used to being able to handle the terrain, because if your wife walks around and heels all day, or never goes outside because she don't like the big winged creatures of the Ozarks, you're gonna have a really bad time. Is the first time you're learning to do everything when your life depends on it, is the absolute worst.
Yeah. Teaching your children to walk quietly through the woods, teaching them to obey, not just walking quietly, but
Discipline.
their mouth.
Yeah.
Discipline their mouth. We both have children. I know many of you do. You take them out in the woods, and they're, oh, look at this, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
They're talking and training them and getting them disciplined, that when the time happens, they need to zip it, and they understand why. This is where, as I've spoken of before, code words in your family. Family words that they know that when you speak this word, that means it's serious. That means there's no more playing around, and we, go into action. Doing what you're saying, not just as individual families, but as groups, is also really good.
Absolutely.
Because if my buddy here and I, if we're training, and maybe we're training with a few other guys, and we all know what we're doing, and we're all getting along, what happens when we bring our wives and children? Maybe they've never met before. Maybe the children have never met. I hear this often. And what if they don't like each other?
Yeah.
So make sure you spend time as families getting to know each other, building that trust, but also learning how to do this kind of stuff. And the women and children may not have to do it all the time, but they at least need to know how to do it sometimes. And so it's highly advisable to get them out. And you can make it a fun family,
Yeah.
The children at least are going to love it.
And there's a good chance that they need a little practice as pack mules.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, you can...
They got to at least carry their own water and some calories on them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Another thing, when we're talking about being out in the woods or wherever you're at, maybe you're not in a forest region, but doesn't matter, and talking about being able to move in quick and move out, one thing you might consider, depending on your situation, is establishing drop points, caches along the way. And what we're talking about is maybe it's simply just having something like this stashed. You may stash this on the way in. You know, if you know you're going to do some particular job, you may carry 2 or 3 of these,
Yep.
and along your route, drop a couple, cover them up with some leaves so that you know you at least have some ammunition as you're getting out. Because chances are, if you're going to have to use one of these, it's probably as you're getting out and running away. So having something like that stashed would be kind of your little drop areas.
Yeah. Always.
Also, you were talking about earlier with me, you know, having little hidey holes, little spider holes along the way.
Absolutely.
Depending on your situation, maybe it's on your property or a neighbor's property that you have permission, or maybe it's public property. You may not be able to develop one quite as well as you'd like, but it's very possible in a national forest or something like that that you could have some kind of little place, even if it's just some downed trees and some type of little lean-to shelter that you could run to and get into to hide if you needed to.
Yeah. That I was going to say, that's one good thing I would tell everybody. If you have people that are close to you and you know that you're going to rely on each other one way or the other, if you got, even if it's just a couple miles, having a couple spots, because you never know if when it hits, when that, whatever that thing is, if you have to leave your house and you have to do a little pack muling just for the basic necessities, it'd be really nice to be able to stop every, you know, a mile, 2 miles, if that's all there is between you all. And maybe you can't. Maybe you have to drop the family off there and go and make sure that your buddy's place isn't overrun too, because comms are down. I mean, you got to be prepared for terrible things like that.
Exactly. Caches are something that you can kind of set up ahead of time and leave out there. That would also be highly advisable. On your own property, if you have permission, maybe your neighbor's property. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't or can or cannot, but people sometimes do that on, you know, national forest property also. It's not difficult at all. I've seen people use 4 and 6 inch PVC capped and buried. You can take a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, seal it off. You can even find small 20 and 30 gallon drums that have a good sealable lid. You can bury it. If you're doing it on not your property, you definitely want to make sure it's concealed very, very well. If it's on your own property, you may not have to worry as much about it being concealed, but having water, food, ammunition, you know, maybe a portable radio. Also, especially with children, I would advise having maybe some shoes, slip-on shoes, a blanket, some rain gear or something like that, because something like this could be used not even in a firefight situation. What if your house catches on fire and maybe it's in the middle of the wintertime and your family has to rush out in the middle of the night? You know, your children are in their sleep clothes, their pajamas and nightgowns, they don't have their shoes on. Knowing that you have something stored away from your house that you can run to and throw some blankets on them, slip some shoes on them, that kind of stuff is very advisable.
I was going to say, one thing I've done before is you can get the food grade plastic barrels, and it's a lot of digging, but you can put a 6-man tent, you can put 10 gallons of water, you can put 2 cases of MREs, and you can put all emergency blankets, emergency radios, and batteries, all that in there.
Yes.
And that's almost like a whole nother, you know, summer cabin in the woods.
Right. And I've seen them at places around here, everything from like the 55 gallon all the way down to like a 10-15 gallon size. So, you know, whatever size works for you, something like that. They're also usually much heavier thickness than, say, just your regular 5-gallon bucket. So they're going to hold up better if you end up burying them. Having that stuff set up already. This is what we're talking about when we're saying getting ready, because these are things that you're not going to want to do after it all hits the fan. You need to be doing this stuff now as individuals, as families, and as small groups. Now, I know that some of you are going to be rolling your eyes through most of this video and saying, man, this is pretty extreme. It's not likely this is ever going to happen. You could be correct. You could be correct.
We could all pray.
Yeah, but you know what? History has shown us that that's not always correct. History has shown us that society can break down actually pretty quickly and can get pretty dangerous very quickly. We can look at recent events over the last few decades around the world, and we can see how things kind of fall apart and get very dangerous very quickly. And as preppers, as people that are trying to be prepared for those kinds of incidences, we have to do this also, regardless of our skill level, regardless of our age and health. We need to have some level of preparedness. Now, all of you aren't going to be the ones running around full kitted out fighting the bad guys. Some of you just may be the support people. You may be manning the radios. You may be the medic. You may be the one taking care of the women and children, while guys like us have to go out and face the evil.
Just as important, though.
It's just as important. You may be the one, you know, especially if you're in a community. There may be guys like us that are doing the patrols, that are protecting, and then you may be back working the gardens, taking care of the animals, teaching the children. There's all kinds of jobs and they're all just as important, because I can assure you, when guys like us may have to go out and defend our homes, the number one thing that's going to be on our mind is what's happening at our home while we're not there.
Yep.
And so having a whole community of people, whether it's just a few families or much larger, that they all have a very important role to play. And the times that are happening and the direction that we see things going, while I wouldn't say they're completely guaranteed that these things could happen, I think every day, and as things worsen, the odds are ever increasing in the chance of bad things really happening. So I think that it's going to be very important. I mean, you're gonna hate yourself if you don't do these things, and then this kind of stuff happens.
And we were talking about this. Humans are lazy. 99% of us are just lazy. But one thing we have going for us is habit. And so you have to do something about 25, 30 times to make it a habit. And just start making a habit of buying stuff and prepping stuff, and then having a day, even if it's just once every couple of weeks, going out and doing surveying and get on the ground, driving around, taking your family with you. Because if your family, the first time your family sees, you know, us guys run around and, you know, distributing freedom and liberty, it's going to be terrifying. And so they need to get used to seeing stuff that they don't normally see, and understand that this is what the country is built on.
Absolutely.
Us being upright citizens and taking care of one another.
Absolutely.
And we are the power.
Yep. So folks, I hope that this gave you some tips and advice and encouragement, and maybe we can continue these kinds of talks in the future and go into some other areas. But whether you're on your own as a group, in shape, maybe you're older, maybe you have things that limit you, you need to be getting ready. And you need to be getting ready to also defend yourself, your family, your community, your loved ones. Because it's quite possible that within our lifetime, and even in the near future, that we may find ourselves in a place that we're forced to do that. And you want to make sure that you're prepared and ready as much as you can be. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order. It's time to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, man.
Yep.